It was a quiet night in late summer. The wind moved slowly through the tall corn and the air smelled of rain and earth. The old farmhouse stood on the edge of a small town, far from the city lights. Inside, John Miller, a simple farmer, was finishing his supper. He had worked hard all day fixing fences and feeding his animals. His dog, Rusty, lay beside the door half asleep. The sky outside was dark but calm. The moon was high, glowing silver over the fields. Everything seemed normal, you see, until it wasn't. Just as John stood to wash his dishes, the lights in the house flickered once, then again. Rusty lifted his head and growled softly. John looked toward the window. "What's wrong, boy?" he asked. Rusty's ears twitched. Then came a strange sound, a deep humming, low at first, then louder like an engine from the sky. John frowned and walked to the porch. The night air felt heavy, still, and tense. He searched the sky but saw nothing at first. Then, out of nowhere, a bright green flash tore through the clouds. It wasn't lightning. It was something faster, brighter, a glowing object moving too quick to be a plane. It streaked across the stars and disappeared behind the trees, leaving a trail of smoke and light. A few seconds later came the crash and a loud, earth-shaking boom that made the windows rattle and the animals cry out. Rusty barked wildly, running in circles. The sound came from the backfield, near the corn patch John had just harvested that week. John's heart pounded. He grabbed his flashlight and his old shotgun that hung near the door. "Stay, Rusty," he said, but the dog followed anyway. Together they walked out into the dark. The night was alive with strange sounds. The hiss of smoke, the crackle of fire, and the distant hum of something not quite natural. The air smelled sharp like burning metal. As John walked closer, the ground under his boots trembled slightly. He could see a faint green glow rising above the corn. "What on earth?" he whispered. He pushed through the tall stalks until he reached the clearing, and stopped dead. In the middle of his field was a deep crater, wide as a small pond. Dirt and smoke rose in clouds. At the bottom lay a strange silver object, and smooth, shining, and shaped like an egg. Sparks jumped off its surface. It wasn't any kind of plane John had ever seen. There were no wings, no engines, no markings. Rusty whined and backed away, his tail low. John took a step closer, shining his light on the wreck. The metal seemed alive, shifting colors from silver to blue to green as the flashlight touched it. Then he heard something, a soft, broken sound, almost like crying. John froze. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. Only that small, weak sound again. He climbed down the side of the crater carefully, the dirt sliding under his boots. His flashlight shook in his hand. The closer he got, the more certain he became. There was someone inside that thing. He reached the side of the craft and saw a small crack running along its surface like a door that had half opened. Through it, a faint blue light glowed. He peered inside and gasped. A figure lay crumpled on the floor, small, thin, and strange. It looked human at first, but its skin shimmered faintly blue under the light. Long white hair spread over its shoulders, and its clothes, if they were clothes, looked like melted glass. The being was breathing, but barely. Its eyes opened for a second, glowing silver like moonlight, and met John's. He felt his breath stop. The creature tried to speak but could only whisper something soft, a sound he didn't understand. Then it closed its eyes again and went still. John's heart raced. He didn't know what to do. Every instinct said to run, to call the sheriff, to get far away from this madness. But something inside him, and something deep and quiet, told him not to leave her there. He put down the shotgun and reached inside the glowing craft. The air was cold and his fingers tingled. Carefully he lifted the small body into his arms. It was lighter than he expected, like holding a child. Rusty barked once, nervously, as John climbed out of the crater carrying the alien girl. Smoke and sparks rose behind them as he walked back to the barn. He looked up once more. The stars were still, but somewhere far above, the sky flickered again like something watching. John didn't know what he had just brought home, but he knew one thing for sure. His quiet life on the farm would never be the same again. The night was far from over. John Miller's heart still pounded in his chest as he carried the strange, injured being toward his barn. The air behind him still glowed faintly green, and the ground smelled of smoke and metal. Every step he took echoed with the thought, "What did I just find?" Rusty barked softly, his fur standing on end. The dog didn't like this one bit, but he stayed close. That was the kind of dog Rusty was. Loyal, brave, and always beside his master. no matter what kind of madness filled the night. When John reached the barn, he laid the alien girl gently on a pile of old hay. The moonlight through the wooden gaps touched her face, and he finally saw her clearly. She looked young, maybe no older than 20 in human years. Her skin had a faint blue glow, like moonlight shining through glass. Her hair was white, not from age but natural, like threads of starlight. Her clothes were torn and burned, strange silver fabric that looked like it had melted in places. John stared at her, unsure what to do. His hands were shaking. He had seen many things in his life, storms, wildfires, even tornadoes, but nothing like this. Nothing that made him question the world itself. "Who are you?" he whispered. Of course, she couldn't answer. Her breathing was slow, weak. He ran back to the house, grabbed a blanket, a bowl of water, and his old first aid kit. When he returned, Rusty was sitting beside her, watching with wary eyes, tail low but calm. The girl hadn't moved. John knelt beside her, dipped a cloth in the water, and wiped the dirt from her face. The moment the cloth touched her skin, it shimmered, sending a soft pulse of light through her veins. John froze. "What in heaven's name?" he muttered. Then he saw it, her wound. A small cut on her shoulder glowed faintly blue, like something under her skin was alive. He didn't know how to fix that, so he just wrapped it gently in clean cloth and hoped for the best. He sat beside her, silent. The barn creaked as wind brushed through the wooden walls. Crickets sang softly outside. The world was normal again, except for the impossible creature lying in his arms. John had always been a quiet man. He liked peace, order, and the slow rhythm of the farm. But now peace was gone. Something from the stars had landed right in his field, and somehow he had chosen to protect it instead of running away. As he watched her, he noticed something strange. Tiny silver sparks dancing around her wrist like fireflies. They faded after a few seconds, leaving behind faint marks on the hay. Her breathing steadied. "She's healing," he said softly, amazed. Hours passed. The fire in the crater had gone out, leaving only smoke. The night grew colder, and the first hint of dawn painted the horizon gray. John dozed off in a chair beside her, his shotgun resting across his lap. Rusty lay at his feet, snoring softly. Then came a sound. Soft, musical, like wind through crystal. John's eyes snapped open. The alien girl was awake. Her silver eyes blinked slowly, calm but confused. She looked at John, then at the barn walls, then at Rusty, who jumped up with a low growl. "Easy, Rusty," John said quickly. "It's okay. She's awake." The girl tried to sit up but winced in pain. Her voice was soft and strange, like two tones at once. "Don't be afraid," she said slowly, the words heavy with effort. Her accent was like nothing John had ever heard, but somehow he understood her. John stared, speechless. You can talk?" She nodded weakly. "I learn fast." He didn't know whether to be amazed or terrified. "What are you? Where did you come from?" he asked. The girl closed her eyes. "Far, very far. My ship broken. I fell." John leaned forward. "Are there more of you?" She shook her head slowly. "No, just me." Then her eyes filled with tears, real, human-like tears that shimmered faint blue in the dim light. "Home, gone," she whispered. "All gone." Something in her voice broke him a little. Whatever she was, alien or not, she wasn't a monster. She was scared, hurt, and alone. John stood up and covered her gently with the blanket. "You're safe here," he said. "No one will find you. I promise." Outside, the first light of morning touched the barn. The world looked peaceful again, but John knew it was only the calm before the storm. The government would come soon. Someone would see the light in the sky. He looked at the girl, sleeping once more, her breathing now steady and soft. He didn't understand her world or her story, but something told him she didn't crash by accident. Something cat or someone had sent her here. And whatever it was, it might not be done yet. The morning sun rose slow and golden over the farm, washing the fields in light. Dew sparkled on every leaf, and for a moment it felt like the world was at peace. But inside the old wooden barn, peace was the last thing on John Miller's mind. He sat in a chair beside the strange girl from the stars. She was still sleeping, her chest rising and falling gently under the blanket. Her skin no longer glowed blue as it had last night. Now it was pale and soft, almost human, except for the faint shimmer that ran across her skin whenever sunlight touched her. John rubbed his tired eyes. He hadn't slept much, Every few minutes he had checked her breathing, unsure if she'd live or vanish like smoke. He still couldn't believe what he had done, dragging a real alien out of a crash and hiding her in his barn like a secret. If anyone found out, they'd think he'd lost his mind. Rusty, his dog, sat near the door, ears perked and nose twitching. The animal hadn't left her side all night. John wondered if Rusty somehow understood that this girl, this creature, wasn't a threat. The girl stirred suddenly. Her eyes fluttered open, silver, calm and deep like a night sky filled with stars. She looked around, confused at first, then focused on him. "You are human?" she asked softly. Her voice carried a faint echo, like two tones speaking as one. John blinked. "Yeah," he said. "Name's John. You, fell out of the sky last night." Her lips moved slightly like she was trying to remember how to speak. "My name, Lyra." "Lyra," John repeated. "You're hurt, Lyra. You need rest." She looked down at the bandage on her shoulder. A small smile touched her lips. "You helped me," he nodded. "Couldn't just leave you there, could I?" For a few seconds they just stared at each other. Two beings from different worlds sitting in a dusty barn while sunlight filtered through cracks in the wood. Then suddenly, Lyra gasped and sat up straight. Her hand went to her neck and her eyes widened. "My crystal," she said in a panic. "It's gone." John stood quickly. "Crystal? You mean something from your ship?" "Yes," she said, voice trembling. "It powers my life. And my ship. Without it I can't call home," John thought fast. "It must still be out there in the crater." She looked at him with fear. "They will come for it." "Who?" Her gaze dropped. "The ones who destroyed my world." The words hit him like cold wind. So she wasn't just lost, she was running, hiding. John swallowed hard. "Then we'll find it before they do." Lyra looked at him, unsure. "You would risk yourself? For me?" He gave a small smile. "Guess I'm already in too deep to stop now." That afternoon, when the sun climbed high, John returned to the crash site. The crater was still smoking faintly, and the strange silver craft lay broken and silent. Birds avoided the area, circling high above. The air hummed faintly like static after a storm. John climbed down carefully, searching through the ash and dirt. He didn't know what this crystal looked like, but he figured he'd know when he saw it. Then he did. Buried halfway in the dirt was a glowing shard, the color of ice and lightning mixed together. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. He reached for it, but when his fingers touched the surface, a shock ran up his arm. Not painful, but powerful. He pulled it free, staring in awe. "Lyra," he whispered, "I think I found your heart." By the time he returned to the barn, Lyra was sitting up, weak but awake. When she saw the crystal, her eyes filled with tears. She reached out and took it in her hands, holding it close to her chest. The glow spread through her veins, soft and warm. "Thank you," she whispered. John watched as the color returned to her cheeks, her energy flowing back. He couldn't explain it, but something deep in him felt lighter too, as if helping her had mended something inside him he didn't know was broken. Lyra looked at him with soft eyes. "You saved me," she said. "No one has ever done that before." John felt heat rise in his face. "Anyone would have done the same." She tilted her head slightly. "No, not anyone." Silence filled the barn again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, almost sacred. Outside, the wind carried the smell of corn and sunlight, and for a moment it felt like they were the only two souls in the world. Then, faintly, a sound broke the calm. A low hum from the sky, far away but growing closer. Lyra's eyes darkened. "They've found us," she whispered. John turned toward the door, gripping his shotgun tight. Whatever was coming, he knew one thing for certain. He would not let them take her. Not now. Not after he had rescued her once. The days that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. The crash site had cooled, the smoke had faded, and the strange green glow was gone. But John Miller knew his farm would never be the same again. In the big red barn, hidden behind stacks of hay, Lyra stayed out of sight. The world outside couldn't see her, not yet. John had locked the barn doors tight and covered the windows with old curtains. Every night he made sure no lights showed from the cracks. If anyone asked about the crash, he simply said it was lightning that hit the field. The truth was something no one would ever believe. Lyra's strength was returning fast. The blue shimmer on her skin had faded into a soft glow that appeared only in the dark. She could walk again, though she moved quietly, almost like she floated. Her silver eyes sparkled whenever she looked at the sky. "This world," she said one morning, standing by the open barn door. "It feels alive. So much sound, so much color," John smiled. "That's Earth for you. Not always peaceful, but it's home." Lyra turned toward him. "Home," she repeated softly as if testing the word. "I like that word." John felt something warm stir in his chest. He had lived alone for years after his parents passed. The farm was all he had left, rows of corn, an old tractor, and the same quiet days over and over again. But now every moment felt different. Lyra's curiosity made him see things he had forgotten to notice. The way sunlight danced on the grass, the smell of rain before it fell, the hum of insects at night. He brought her clothes from his late mother's old trunk. She smiled shyly as she tried on a flannel shirt and jeans. "Strange," she said, tugging at the collar. "Your kind covers so much," John laughed. "Well, it gets cold around here." Lyra tilted her head. "I like cold. It reminds me of the stars." Over time, she began to help around the farm. She learned how to feed the chickens, water the crops, and even fix a broken fence. When she touched the plants, they seemed to grow faster, stronger. Her energy flowed into everything she touched, leaving behind small glows that faded slowly like fireflies. John tried not to ask too many questions, but one night, curiosity got the better of him. "Lyra," he said as they sat outside watching the sunset, "what really happened to your world?" For a moment she didn't answer. Then she said softly, "My world was called Virella. We lived in harmony for thousands of cycles. But a war came, machines without hearts created by our own people. They turned against us. I fled before the end." Her voice trembled slightly. "I was supposed to find a safe place, a new home. But I crashed instead." John stared at her. "So you're the last one?" "I think so," she whispered. "Maybe others escaped, but I cannot feel them anymore." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with things neither of them knew how to say. Suddenly, Rusty barked loudly, running toward the road. John stood up fast. A black car had stopped by the gate. Two men in suits stepped out, wearing dark glasses even though the sun had already set. John's heart dropped. "Government men. Evening, sir," one said as they approached. "We're with the Department of Aerospace Safety. We're investigating reports of an object that fell near this area last week. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" John forced a calm smile. "No, sir. Probably a meteor. We get those now and then." The man looked past him toward the barn. "Mind if we take a look around?" John stepped in front of them. "Afraid I can't allow that without a warrant. Private property." The agents exchanged glances. One wrote something in a small notebook. "We'll be back," he said flatly. "Don't leave town." As the car drove away, John's hands trembled. He hurried back to the barn. Lyra was already hiding behind the hay bales, her eyes wide. "They came," she whispered. "They know." John closed the barn door and locked it tight. "Not yet," he said. "But they will if we're not careful." That night, neither of them slept. John sat by the door with his shotgun, staring into the dark fields. Lyra sat quietly, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You risk everything for me," she said softly. "Why?" John looked at her, then at the stars above. "Because if I don't, who will?" She smiled faintly. "You humans are strange," he chuckled. "You have no idea." Outside, a faint hum echoed again in the distance, not from cars but from the sky. John looked up and saw faint lights moving above the clouds. He couldn't tell if they were planes or something else. Whatever they were getting closer. The secret on his farm wouldn't stay secret for long. The morning after the visit from the agents, the farm no longer felt safe. John Miller could feel it in the air, heavy, thick, wrong. The silence of the countryside was broken by sounds he couldn't explain. The distant rumble of trucks, the hum of something flying too low, and the faint echo of radios crackling far away. Lyra sat inside the barn, her hands glowing faintly as she traced strange symbols in the air. Lines of light hung there for a moment before fading away. "They are searching," she whispered. "Their machines can sense energy from my ship. It is only a matter of time." John tightened his grip on his old hat and sighed. "Then we've got to move it. Maybe hide the wreck deeper in the woods." Lyra looked at him with sad eyes. "Even if you hide it, they will still come for me." John's jaw tightened. Then they'll have to go through me first. Rusty barked suddenly, loud and sharp. John turned toward the window and froze. Down the dirt road, 3 black vans were approaching fast, kicking up clouds of dust. His heart began to race. "They're here," he said. Lyra stood up, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "John, listen to me. If they find me, they will take me away. You must let me go." "No," John said firmly. "You're not going anywhere." She shook her head. "You don't understand. If they take me, they will use me. My power is not just light, it can destroy. Your world is not ready for it." Before John could answer, the sound of engines roared louder. The van skidded to a stop at the edge of the farm. Men in black uniforms spilled out, carrying strange scanning devices and rifles. "Stay here," John whispered, "and no glowing this time." He stepped outside, hands raised, trying to look calm. The lead agent, the same one from before, walked toward him. "Morning, Mr. Miller," he said coldly. "We need to search your property again." "Official business," John forced a smile. "Still chasing your meteor?" "This isn't a request," the man said. He gestured, and 2 soldiers began walking toward the barn. John's pulse quickened. "You can't go in there." The agent ignored him. "Step aside." But before the soldiers reached the door, a sudden gust of wind blew across the field, strong enough to bend the corn and lift dust into the air. The men froze. The air shimmered faintly like heat over asphalt. Then from inside the barn, a faint blue light began to pulse. John's stomach turned cold. "Lyra, no." The agent's eyes narrowed. "What's that light?" He signaled his men forward, but before they could move, the barn doors burst open. A blinding blue wave shot out, knocking everyone backward. Dust and hay filled the air. When it cleared, Lyra stood in the doorway. Her eyes glowed like stars, her hair floating slightly around her head. The air around her hummed, alive with energy. "Stop," she shouted, her voice echoing like thunder and music at once. "You do not understand what you chase." The soldiers raised their weapons. John ran forward. "Don't shoot," he yelled, but they didn't listen. The first shot rang out, loud and sharp. The bullet hit an invisible wall of light and melted in midair. Lyra flinched, her glow flaring brighter. John ran to her side. "Lyra, stop! You'll kill them!" She looked at him, tears shining in her silver eyes. "They will not stop, John. They never stop." Her hands lifted slightly, and the engines of the vans began to sputter and die. Metal bent and groaned as if the earth itself were rejecting them. The men stumbled back, shouting into their radios. Then Lyra's knees buckled. The light flickered. She was too weak to keep it up. John caught her before she fell. "Enough!" the lead agent shouted. "Take them both!" John grabbed his shotgun and fired once into the air. The loud crack made everyone pause. "You're not taking her anywhere," he shouted. For a moment, nobody moved. The air was thick with smoke and fear. Then, from far above, a strange sound filled the sky. Deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Everyone looked up. Through the clouds, a massive circular shadow passed overhead. Lyra's eyes widened. "They found me," she whispered. "But not your kind. Mine." A beam of light swept over the field, searching, scanning. The agents panicked, shouting into their radios. The shadow above grew brighter. John held Lyra close. "What is that thing?" "My people," she said weakly. "Or what's left of them." The beam moved closer. Rusty barked wildly, running in circles. John didn't know whether to run or stay still. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the light faded, and the shadow vanished into the clouds. The sky grew quiet again, too quiet. The agents scrambled to their vans, terrified and confused. The leader glared at John. "This isn't over," he growled before leaving. John watched them go, his arms still wrapped around Lyra. Her breathing was slow but steady. When silence returned, he looked down at her and said softly, "I told you, Lyra, I'm not letting anyone take you." She looked up weakly, a small smile on her lips. "You are stubborn," he grinned. "You're just figuring that out now." Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the fields in gold. The chase was over for now, but deep down John knew it was only the beginning. The storm had passed, but its echo remained. For 3 long days, John Miller's farm sat under a strange silence. The black vans never returned, the skies stayed clear, and yet the feeling of being watched never left him. Inside the barn, Lyra lay resting, her glow dim but steady. The fight had drained her. The blast she had released had taken more energy than her body could handle. Her hands trembled whenever she tried to stand. John brought her food every few hours: bread, soup, water, though he wasn't sure what she could eat. To his surprise, she took to human food easily, even smiling the first time she tasted sweet honey. "This," she said softly, her eyes bright with wonder, "is joy and flavor." John chuckled. "Yeah, we humans are simple. Give us something sweet and we're happy." Lyra smiled, and the barn seemed brighter just from that. Every day she grew stronger. She began walking outside again, though always at night when the stars filled the sky. She would stand in the middle of the cornfield, barefoot, arms raised, eyes closed, as if drawing energy from the universe itself. John often watched from the porch, not wanting to disturb her. He couldn't explain it, but something about her filled him with peace. The nightmares that had haunted him for years, memories of loss, of loneliness, were fading. He no longer felt like the world was passing him by. One evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the sky orange, Lyra approached the porch where John sat whittling a piece of wood. "Your world is beautiful," she said softly. "It breathes." John looked up at her. "You make it sound like it's alive." She nodded. "It is. Every sound, every color. It hums with the same song I hear in the stars." He smiled faintly. "Guess I stopped listening a long time ago." Lyra tilted her head. "You were alone too long." Her words hit deeper than she knew. John looked away, pretending to focus on his carving. "Yeah, well, a farm doesn't run itself. But even a farm," she said, stepping closer, "needs a heart to care for it. And you gave me yours when I fell." John froze for a second. Her words were simple, but they felt heavy, honest, raw. He looked at her, really looked. Her silver eyes reflected the fading light like liquid metal. For the first time, he saw not an alien, not a mystery, but a soul, fragile, kind, and somehow deeply human. They spent that evening together, sitting side by side on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one. Lyra pointed to a faint cluster in the sky. "There," she whispered. "That is where my home once was, Virella. My mother told me that the stars remember everything. Maybe one day they'll remember us too." John didn't know what to say. He simply nodded and handed her a cup of warm tea. "Maybe," he said softly. "They already do." As days passed, their lives fell into a quiet rhythm. John taught Lyra how to milk the cow, fix the tractor, and plant new seeds for the coming season. She learned fast, though she often laughed at the odd ways humans did things. In return, she showed him things he never dreamed possible: how to mend broken tools using light, how to heal a small cut by touching it with her fingertips, how to listen to the wind like it was speaking. At night, she told him stories of her people, of crystal cities that floated above oceans of light, of gardens that grew in the air, and of children who could speak to the stars. John listened with quiet awe. "Your world sounds like a dream," he said one night. Lyra smiled sadly. "Dreams end, John. But maybe with you I can start a new one." He looked at her and something in his chest shifted, something he hadn't felt in years. "You already have." Silence filled the air again, but it wasn't empty. It was alive, glowing softly between them like the faint hum of her power. Then one night, while they were tending to the fields under the moonlight, Lyra suddenly paused. Her expression changed. She looked toward the sky. "What is it?" John asked. Her voice was low, almost trembling. "The signal. My ship. It's repairing itself. Soon it will be ready." John stared at her. "You mean you can leave?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, the stars are calling me home, but..." She looked at him, her silver eyes shimmering. "Part of me doesn't want to go." John's throat tightened. "Then stay." "I cannot," she whispered. "My people may still be out there. They need me. But my heart..." She touched his chest gently. "My heart has already found something here." He placed his hand over hers. "Then wherever you go, you won't go alone." Lyra smiled, though her eyes glistened with tears. "You humans, you always find light even in endings," he smiled back. "Maybe because sometimes endings are just new beginnings in disguise." The wind picked up, whispering through the corn. Above them, the stars burned bright, brighter than John had ever seen. But far beyond the glow of Earth's sky, something else stirred. A faint ripple of light, like a storm slowly returning. And neither of them knew that their story was not done yet. The night sky had never looked so alive. Stars shimmered like tiny hearts, pulsing across the black velvet of space. The wind whispered through the cornfields, carrying the scent of earth and rain. Everything was quiet, yet everything was waiting. Inside the barn, Lyra stood beside her ship. It was no longer broken or silent. The silver hull now glowed with soft blue light, smooth and perfect again, as if the earth itself had healed it. Strange symbols danced across its surface, forming patterns that shimmered like constellations. John Miller stood near the door, his hat in his hands, eyes heavy with something deeper than words. He had helped her fix the last of it. Not because he wanted her to leave, but because he loved her enough to let her choose. "You're sure it's ready?" he asked quietly. Lyra nodded. Her voice was calm but sad. "Yes. The system is complete. I could leave tonight, before they return." John swallowed hard. "And you're going?" She looked down, her silver eyes reflecting the barn lights. "I don't know. My ship calls to me. My people may still live, but my heart..." She placed her hand over her chest. "My heart is here." Silence filled the air. Outside, the world felt frozen, as if nature itself was holding its breath. John took a slow step forward. "You once said your world was gone. Maybe that means your new world is right here." Lyra smiled faintly. "You speak as if home is something we can build." He met her gaze. "It is. I built mine once. I can do it again. If you stay." For a moment her eyes softened, but then from the sky above a sound broke the calm, a low hum that grew louder with each second. The ground trembled. The stars seemed to shift. Lyra turned toward the open barn doors. "They've found me again." John rushed outside. High above, a vast shadow passed across the moon. A dark ship, larger than the one that had crashed, its hull glowing with the same silver light as Lyra's. "They're my people," she said softly. "The survivors." John looked up, squinting. "Then they came for you." Lyra nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, they came, but they cannot stay. They will leave, and I must decide whether to go with them." John felt the words like a knife. "You don't have to." Lyra turned to him. "You don't understand, John. My body is not made for this world. Its air, its gravity. They will change me in time. If I stay too long, I may fade." He took a shaky breath. "So you'll die if you stay?" "Not die," she whispered. "Just become something else. Something not quite me." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum in the sky grew louder, like a heartbeat from heaven. Then Lyra stepped closer. "You showed me what kindness means, what courage means, what love means. Before I came here, I thought humans were only stories, a violent race lost in their own chaos. But you made me see beauty in your weakness." John's throat tightened. "You're no weakness, Lyra. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." She smiled through her tears. "And you are the reason I can leave with peace." The air above them split open in a beam of white light. Dust swirled, hay lifted, the barn doors rattled against their hinges. The light reached down, touching Lyra like a hand from the stars. John reached out instinctively. "Lyra!" She turned to him one last time, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Don't forget me, John Miller of Earth." "I couldn't if I tried," he said, voice breaking. She smiled, stepped into the beam, and for an instant, the world seemed to stop. The light wrapped around her, lifting her gently off the ground. Her body shimmered, her hair flowing like liquid silver. Then, just before she vanished, she whispered, "I love you." And then she was gone. The light faded, and the sky went silent again. The giant ship rose higher, becoming only a star among others before disappearing completely. John stood there long after the light was gone, staring up at the sky. Rusty came to sit beside him, pressing against his leg, as if even the dog understood the emptiness that now filled the air. Days passed, then weeks. Life on the farm slowly returned to normal. John worked the fields, fixed the fences, and watched the stars every night. But sometimes when the wind blew just right, he swore he could hear her voice in it, soft, like music. Years later, folks in town would still talk about the farmer who never left his land, and the strange lights that had once filled his sky. Some said it was a UFO. Others said it was a dream. But John knew better. Every night, he looked up at the stars and whispered her name. And far across the galaxy, somewhere beyond the reach of human eyes, a silver-haired woman looked toward a small blue world and smiled. 2 hearts, 2 worlds, 1 love, bound beyond the stars.